Key points: political crisis over constitutional amendment. Pakistan's political scene is stuck in a deadlock over a constitutional amendment. The government is pushing to pass it, while the PTI is staunchly opposing it. The amendment aims to limit the power of the Supreme Court and change the selection of the Chief Justice, potentially allowing the government more control over judicial transitions. Judiciary and government tensions. The government's fear is that the upcoming Chief Justice may overturn decisions that secured their position, particularly post February 9th, 2023. As a result, the amendment is seen as a way to diffuse the potential threat from the judiciary. The situation has raised concerns that the judiciary may react strongly, leading to further instability. Three main transitions. The article highlights three critical transitions: the judiciary, government, and military. Each transition brings crises of its own, destabilizing Pakistan further. The transitions have been accompanied by political intrigue, uncertainty, and power struggles, with the judiciary now experiencing the kind of lobbying and instability that previously affected the government and military. Historical context and increasing instability. Transitions in Pakistan, whether in the military, judiciary, or elections, have become progressively destabilizing. The article compares the relative smoothness of earlier transitions, e.g., Dawn leaks in 2016, to the current situation, which refuses to settle. The overlap between these transitions only compounds the instability. Uncertain future. The overlapping crises create a cycle of instability, with no clear solution in sight. There are no collective rules in place for smooth transitions across the government, judiciary, and military, leaving the country in a constant state of political and legal turmoil. Crux. Pakistan is grappling with political paralysis over a proposed constitutional amendment aimed at curbing the judiciary's powers, while transitions in the judiciary, government, and military have become increasingly fraught with crisis and instability. These overlapping transitions exacerbate tensions, making it difficult to find a resolution that all stakeholders can agree upon, leading to prolonged national uncertainty. Key points and crux. SCO and BRICS meetings. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Islamabad and the upcoming BRICS summit in Russia highlight the urgency to address global crises, including the escalating conflict in Gaza, tensions in the South China Sea, and the ongoing war in Ukraine. The meetings aim to discuss political, economic, and security partnerships among member states. India's contradictory role. India and Iran are both part of the SCO and BRICS, but their stances on the Israel-Palestine conflict are sharply contrasting. While Iran opposes Israel, India has provided support to Israel, creating an internal contradiction within the groups. India's refusal to engage with Pakistan. Despite being part of the SCO meeting, India's foreign minister has declared that India will not engage in talks with Pakistan. This refusal seems disconnected from the meeting's agenda and serves as a non sequitur to divert attention to bilateral issues rather than the urgent global matters at hand. Media and foreign policy concerns. The article criticizes Indian media for its limited focus on international issues beyond India's own interests. The author also questions why India is supplying arms to Israel amid the Gaza conflict and why it has refrained from condemning Israel's actions at the UN. Historical anecdote on foreign policy missteps. The article recounts an example from the 1990s when an Indian journalist asked irrelevant questions to German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, illustrating a pattern of insular and misguided focus in Indian foreign policy discourse. Modi's absence from the SCO. The article suggests that Modi's absence from the Islamabad meeting may be due to concerns about Iran and the complex dynamics with Israel. It also reflects the communal influence of Hindutva on India's foreign policy, a shift from earlier leaders like Vajpayee, who engaged in diplomacy with Pakistan despite tensions. Crux. As global tensions rise, the SCO and BRICS summits are critical platforms to discuss multipolarity and security challenges. However, India's contradictory stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict, coupled with its refusal to engage with Pakistan at the SCO meeting, reflects a self-centered foreign policy. This approach may hinder meaningful dialogue on urgent global issues while exposing India's growing alignment with Israel, especially amid the Gaza conflict. Key points. Debate on parliamentary supremacy versus judicial freedom. The ongoing debate centers around the right balance between parliamentary supremacy and judicial freedom. The regime emphasizes the supremacy of parliament, while courts are seen as increasingly powerful. However, the true essence of democracy lies in the supremacy of the people's will and welfare, with both parliament and judiciary being tools to achieve this. Checks and balances. In democracies, elected representatives, parliament, govern. But there is always a risk that these representatives may act against the people's interests. To prevent this, courts act as monitors of parliament and the executive, ensuring laws do not undermine human rights or democratic norms. This balance helps ensure public welfare is prioritized. Judicial review. Courts must have the power to strike down even constitutional laws passed by large majorities if they harm public welfare, but they should refrain from interfering in technical areas where they lack expertise. Judicial freedom and independence. Judicial independence is crucial to ensuring that courts can monitor executives freely. Powerful executives should not influence the hiring, accountability, or functioning of judges. Involving the executive in these matters threatens judicial independence, especially in weak democracies like Pakistan. Concerns with the new constitutional bill. The new constitutional bill, passed hastily and with questionable mandate, is criticized for potentially giving too much power to the executive, especially with the Prime Minister unilaterally appointing the head of the proposed constitutional court. The need for a separate constitutional court in Pakistan, a common law state where courts already review laws, is also questioned. Risks of executive influence. The bill appears to be a power grab to control the judiciary. While it may enhance parliamentary supremacy, it risks undermining public welfare and judicial independence. Moreover, the establishment's sway over civilian structures, including the judiciary, is a common issue that weakens democratic institutions. Impact on democracy. The bill, if implemented, could set back democratic progress in Pakistan by empowering the executive and, by extension, the establishment, increasing political instability and eroding public trust in the system. Crux. The debate over parliamentary supremacy and judicial freedom should focus on maximizing public welfare, which requires a balance between the two. The new constitutional bill risks upsetting this balance by increasing executive control over the judiciary, undermining judicial independence, and weakening democratic processes. Instead of promoting public welfare, the bill may exacerbate political instability and conflict. Key points. Origin and evolution of the gesture lanat. The gesture of lanat, disgust or condemnation, has ancient roots dating back to ancient Greece. It was originally used by common people to publicly express disgust towards criminals by smearing mud on them or mimicking the act from a distance. Over time, this gesture evolved and is still used in parts of the world, including Pakistan. Cultural variations. Different regions have adapted the gesture with unique expressions. In Sindh, the phrase hi vath accompanies lanat. In Punjab and Sindh, lak is added for emphasis, and in the Saraiki belt, the expression gaharor ke, grinding insult, adds intensity. The gesture is less common in Baloch and Pakhtun cultures. Use in modern context. A viral video recently reignited the discussion about lanat, using it to target the current Chief Justice. While criticism of judicial decisions is valid, personal and family attacks have escalated beyond acceptable limits. The article discusses the need for respect even in criticism and highlights the dangers of disrespect spiraling into reciprocal abuse. The role of public figures. Public figures, including judges and politicians, should not be above the law. However, they must be treated with respect, and accountability should be based on legal procedures, not on personal vendettas or abuse. The article laments the trend of forcing public figures into exile rather than addressing their alleged wrongs through due process. Historical parallels. The article recalls historical figures such as Faiz Ahmed Faiz and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who faced public disgrace but ultimately became iconic figures. Their resilience serves as a reminder that truth and integrity can withstand slander and personal attacks. A call for dignity and accountability. The piece concludes with a call to stop the public humiliation of individuals, particularly those serving in high offices. While accountability is crucial, it must be done through legal channels ensuring justice and avoiding personal attacks that erode the dignity of public discourse. Crux. The article critiques the modern misuse of the gesture "lanat" in public discourse, especially when targeting figures like the Chief Justice. While holding public figures accountable is essential, personal and family attacks undermine the integrity of public debate. The piece calls for respect, dignity, and legal accountability, reminding readers of historical figures who maintained their honor despite public disgrace. Key points. No military operation in Balochistan. Balochistan's Chief Minister Sarfaraz Bugti stated that a military operation is not planned in response to the recent attack on coal miners in Duki. Intelligence-based operations are ongoing to uncover the truth behind the attack, which remains unclaimed by any group. Ineffectiveness of militarized responses. Balochistan has long faced militant activity, but decades of militarized responses have failed to bring lasting peace. There is a call for more than just military action, suggesting that addressing economic and political grievances is essential to pacifying the region. Need for intelligence improvement. The recent Duki attack, like other violent episodes, reflects possible intelligence lapses. A thorough investigation is needed to understand and prevent future attacks. Rights activists targeted. The state continues to crack down on peaceful voices calling for change, evidenced by the terrorism and sedition case filed against Dr. Marang Balok, a rights activist. This case, filed by a random businessman with no direct connection to Balochistan, is part of a recurring tactic where anti-national accusations are made by unrelated individuals. Radicalization of disenfranchised populations. By marginalizing peaceful activists, the state risks pushing disillusioned populations, such as those in Balochistan and KP, towards radicalization. Similar grievances, including enforced disappearances and unequal resource extraction, have also been raised by the PTM in KP. Call for political and economic solutions. To truly counter terrorism and insurgency, the state needs to balance security measures with political and economic reforms. Allowing marginalized groups to air grievances and addressing them constitutionally can lead to long-term stability and inclusion. Crux. The article emphasizes that military operations alone cannot resolve the insurgency and terrorism in Balochistan. Instead, political and economic efforts are necessary to address the root causes of discontent. The crackdown on peaceful activists like Dr. Mahrang Baloch only fuels further radicalization, pushing marginalized populations away from dialogue and into confrontation with the state. True progress requires constitutional inclusion and addressing the long-standing grievances of Balochistan and KP's people. Key points. Pakistan cricket in crisis. Pakistan's cricket team is facing severe challenges, both in terms of management and performance. The recent defeat to England in Multan has led to multiple changes, including the reconstitution of the selection committee and the dropping of key players. Selection committee changes. The new selection committee includes Aleem Dar, Aqib Javed, and Azhar Ali. Pakistan's cricket has seen 26 different selectors since August 2021, reflecting management inconsistency. The committee has chosen to rest star players like Babar Azam, Shaheen Shah Afridi, and Naseem Shah for the remaining 2 matches, a decision that has raised eyebrows. Babar Azam's exclusion. Babar Azam's omission is surprising, especially as Captain Shan Masood and coach Jason Gillespie had backed him despite his recent lack of form. He hasn't scored even a half-century in his last 9 tests. Pitch criticism. The pitch in Multan was criticized for being too placid and not offering any help to bowlers. The same pitch will be used in the second test, hoping that the wear and tear from the first match will benefit bowlers. PCB's inconsistent leadership. Since Chairman Mohsin Naqvi's tenure began, the selection committee has been reconstituted 3 times. This constant reshuffling highlights the lack of long-term planning and organizational consistency within the Pakistan Cricket Board. Focus on salvaging England's series. The current focus seems to be on salvaging something from the ongoing England series, as Pakistan has lost 6 tests in a row. However, the article argues that these short-term fixes, such as resting key players, may not address the deeper structural issues within Pakistan cricket. Crux. The police's violent response to peaceful protests in Karachi reflects a growing disregard for constitutional rights and effective crowd management. Instead of ensuring safety and distinguishing between peaceful protesters and troublemakers, the authorities resorted to unnecessary force, worsening the situation. The government's lack of serious response and reliance on restrictive laws like Section 144 are eroding public trust, leading to further unrest. Urgent steps are needed to de-escalate the tension and uphold citizens' political rights. Key points: police brutality against civilians. In Karachi, police used disproportionate force to break up a peaceful protest, resulting in violence and widespread condemnation. Scenes of women being dragged, men beaten with batons, and journalists mistreated highlighted the heavy-handed response. Violation of constitutional rights. The crackdown reflects the shrinking space for citizens to exercise their constitutional rights in Pakistan. Despite the outcry, the provincial ruling party offered only token condemnations, showing indifference to the public's concerns. Use of Section 144. Instead of managing the situation between rival protests, the authorities imposed Section 144, restricting public gatherings. This action is seen as a derogation of political rights, as protests and counter-protests happen worldwide and should be handled peacefully. Failure in crowd control. The police failed to manage the crowd effectively, treating peaceful citizens and miscreants alike, which escalated violence unnecessarily. Better crowd control could have prevented the chaos. Need for better crisis management. The police response has sparked further agitation, and there are now more protests planned against the state's actions. Authorities need to address the public's anger and resolve the situation before it spirals further out of control. Crux. Pakistan cricket is struggling due to inconsistent management, frequent changes in the selection committee, and a lack of long-term planning. While star players like Babar Azam and Shaheen Afridi have been rested to regain form, it reflects a deeper crisis in decision-making. Cosmetic changes may not be enough to address the team's poor performance, and a more comprehensive overhaul is needed to revive Pakistan cricket. The upcoming matches against England will determine whether these recent decisions have had any positive effect.